Good morning, people. How are you?
Good morning.
All right. So, want to get some paperwork done first? Hey, Caitlin. Number one is I'm going to need for you guys to fill out that attendance form online every Tuesday. It kind of helps keep us moving. The administration really wants us to make sure that everybody is participating. The more we have for participation, the easier it is for us to not have to go to summer school. And that's why we're doing all of this. We're not missing any summer school, or we're not missing any school. All right, so I'm just we're up to about 50 participants. As soon as I hit around 60 or 70, I'm gonna go over, I've got a short Prezi. Today's lesson is gonna be about podcasting. How many people here have podcasted before? Anybody? Avery, you have. Mac, you have. Well, podcasting is a great way to get your message out. It's more than just podcasting. One of the things that we are going to be going over is branding and making sure that you've got a good audience. Having a specific audience is key to success in a podcast. So, without further ado, I'm going to do my Prezi. If you have any questions, feel free to, just shout out your question, because I'm not going to be able to see you once I share my screen. And let me make sure that I have that. And all right, you should see my screen now. Dr. Laux, can you see my screen? You have frozen. Noah, can you see my screen? Just raise your hand if you can see my screen. No, you can't.
Okay.
I don't either.
Yeah, it says that you started screen sharing, but it's just a loading signal.
Got you.
See anybody's video right now.
All right. Hold on. All right, let me see if I can bring that again.
I know that Zoom has changed a lot of their settings because of the Zoom bombing that was going on.
Yeah. Are you able to see it now?
Yes, sir.
All right. All right. So I'm going to go over my Prezi. Basically, this is podcast this afternoon. So the goal of this is so that you guys can podcast starting this afternoon. In fact, you guys can start podcasting right away. So let's get into this. So basically, podcast. A podcast is an episodic video or audio file. For our purposes right now, we're talking about just audio. And it comes from the two words iPod and broadcast. So it's been around a while, as long as iPods have been around. There are tons of books available. You really don't need them. The books are made to just sell you something. So there are 4 basic types of podcasts. There's the solo podcast, the duo or group podcast, the interview, and the story. most of you guys are going to do solo podcasts, but I would love to see you guys do interviews.
Misner, are we allowed to do group, or would you prefer us?
Hold on. What was that question?
Would you prefer us to do solo, or are we allowed to do group?
You could do whatever you want. The more experimental you guys get, the better I like it.
Cool.
So I love when a student goes, you know, I want to try this. That's what this whole thing is about. I want you to try everything. It's okay if it doesn't work, because you just try and you learn by trying. That's how I learned. Dr. Laux has got one. His audience is specifically, I believe your audience is specifically orchestra teachers, Dr. Laux. You're on mute. And I'm trying to unmute you. Dr. Laux, you're still on mute. All right, so let me go back to this podcast real quickly. This Pressy.
Questions, we've got answers. Welcome to Run It Like You Own It. Run It Like You Own It is a podcast dedicated to taking your program to the next level. We explore video programs and their instructors around the country who have built a sustainable and growing program. Each week, we explore a topic from Facebook users groups who post problems that need answers. Please take a moment to give us a 5-star rating and bookmark our podcast series so that we can continue to bring you timely, relevant.
All right, so that is the solo podcast. That's the most common one. I host a podcast called The Video Teacher, and my target audience is video teachers. However, when I go to monetize this thing, I'm actually going to be targeting videopreneurs because there's a bigger market. But for right now, my podcast is The Video Teacher. It's a solo podcast, but I also combine a couple other things in there.
My microphone and everything died, so I had to restart the app. So I'm happy to talk about my podcast when it's appropriate.
I muted myself. All right. So moving right along, here's the next podcast.
Hi, I'm Larry Jordan.
And I'm Norman Holland.
And Norman, what the heck is today's show about?
Today, I think we should talk about lighting and how you can use lighting to help tell your story.
No.
Yeah.
Look around. Look at all the lights we've got here. How many of these lights do you see reading?
All right. So the duo or group podcast is actually easier because you can kind of play off of somebody. And we also have to make sure that we are keeping social distancing. So the best way to do a duo or group podcast is through either FaceTime or Zoom or Google Hangouts, and record your audio and then do it that way. We want to make sure that we are practicing social distancing.
And just so
So,
you know,
take
guys,
me through, like, your first year. What was your biggest struggle that first year?
Sure. So I can really relate. So I was coming in. Now, although I had video background, I learned and produced videos using 3/4-inch videotapes. I had never done any nonlinear editing. I also had not used any of the equipment in the TV.
All right, so that was a video interview or an interview podcast, and that is a video teacher that I'm good friends with. He is in St. Louis, Missouri, and I interview him the same way I do the FaceTime Fridays. So I tend to pick video teachers that are doing things that are over and above what a normal video teacher would do. And this one video teacher, actually, he's the one who came up with the 6-word story video that I use. So that's an interview podcast. I highly recommend that you guys do that, and you can interview anybody. Well, almost anybody. This is my favorite type.
This is a Global Link prepaid call from an inmate from Maryland Correctional Facility.
From This American Life and WBEZ Chicago, it's Serial, one story told week by week. I'm Sarah Koenig. For the last year, I've spent every working day trying to figure out where a high school kid was for an hour after school one day in 1999. Or if you want to get technical about it, and apparently I do, where a high school kid was for 21 minutes after school one day in 1999. This search sometimes feels undignified on my part. I've had to ask about teenagers' sex lives, where, how often, with whom, about notes they passed in class, about their drug habits, their relationships with their parents. And I'm not a detective or a private investigator. I'm not even a crime reporter. But yes, every day this year, I've tried to figure out the alibi of a 17-year-old boy. Before I get into why I've been doing this, I just want to point out something I'd never really thought about before I started working on this story. And that is, it's really hard to account for your time in a detailed way, I mean. How'd you get to work last Wednesday, for instance? Drive, walk, bike? Was it raining? Are you sure?
So that podcast is the most successful podcast of all time. It's a podcast called Serial. It's about a story of a high school senior in 1999 who was accused of murdering his girlfriend. And this podcast series basically goes over everything that happened during the trial, and you are left thinking, oh my God, this guy is innocent. And the bad part about the story is that it doesn't get resolved. But it has opened up the door to, I believe it was Netflix did a story on this and actually created a movie out of it. The story podcast is by far the hardest to do, but by far the most rewarding to do. And you can find podcasts about any kind of story. So, what are you going to need? First, you need a topic. That is the most important. So pick a topic, something that is interesting to you, because if it's interesting to you, more than likely you have a set audience. You may think, I'm the only one that likes to whatever. You're not. And when you pick your topic and you pick something that you're interested in, it could be about comic books. It could be about how violins are made. It could be about just about anything. So for me, I picked about teaching video. It's something that I know about, something that I'm passionate about. You need to answer this question. Can it be ongoing? And if it's something that you're teaching somebody, more than likely, yes. And number 3 is, do you have an audience? And more than likely you do. You just have to be kind of specific about who your audience is. Don't say everybody, because there is no audience where there's everybody. So here are some helpful ideas for you guys to get started. Journal. Right now, you're doing something that your kids are going to ask you about. If, 30 years from now, they're going to say, Mom or Dad, can you tell me about like the pandemic? And you're going to have that information. Report on the news or current events. Teach something. Host trivia. Maybe things you loved as a kid. I know that one of the things that made Disney Plus successful is a lot of teens loved watching their old cartoons that they grew up on. Maybe review a movie or a book. So here are the things that you're going to need. You're going to need a microphone. You're going to need a recording device. You might need some editing software like GarageBand, Audacity, Final Cut, and you're going to need a platform to host. Here is your host, folks, Anchor.fm. You need to write that down, Anchor.fm. That's the site you're going to be visiting, and that's the site that's going to host your podcast. The reason I chose Anchor.fm is because it's free, it's easy, and they basically upload your podcast to a hosting service. And their hosting service of choice is Spotify. For you guys to get on Apple Podcasts, you're going to have to do a little bit of work in terms of going on the internet and finding out how to do that. I actually did it because there are actually more people. There are more people on Apple Podcasts than any other podcast. About 80% of my podcast visitors come from Apple Podcast. So your host will upload your podcast directly to Spotify. However, it's up to you to get it onto Apple Podcast. So here's what you need to do, folks. You need to go to Anchor.fm and start your account for free. So let me get back to my hosting. All right. So a lot of you guys are going to be wondering, what the heck am I going to need to do an Apple or to do a podcast? This is it, folks. Your phone. That's all you need. Yes, certainly you can use editing software, but honestly, all you have to do is record your voice using your phone, and when you go to Anchor.fm, they will have music that they will actually underlay your voice. Bless you, Duncan. They will have music that will actually underlay your voice. So there's not a lot of lesson here in terms of what you're gonna do. This is for you guys to explore. Are you guys gonna fail sometimes? Yes, it's okay. What you want to do is you want to learn by failing. And I don't mean failing like you can't do this. I mean, you're actually going to figure out what works and what doesn't. I started out doing a solo podcast. As soon as I got the fear out of me, I interviewed a teacher. and then I interviewed another, and then another, and then another. And that's what I want you to do, is I want you to experiment. Now, I'm only giving you 3 days on this. You got to do 2 podcasts. That's it. The first podcast you're going to do this afternoon. And basically, your podcast is tell me what you're going to tell me. So it may be, hi, my name is Audrey Salter, and I'm going to do a podcast on things to do in your house without going stir crazy. And that's what my podcast is. And then tell me some things that you can actually do in your house. So basically, a podcast, the beginning is tell me what you're going to tell me, and then tell me, and then tell me what you told me. It's basic storytelling 101. How many people feel like you can do this? Come on, raise your hands. Everyone, you guys can do this. How are you going to turn this in? Basically, send a link, copy a link, and fill out the Google form and post your link in there. That's all you've got to do. There is a What Did I Learn paper. Basically, I want you to learn something. Most of you guys, if not all of you, have never done this before, and that's okay. That's what this whole thing is. Once you get started doing this, then we're going to start talking about branding and coming up with a title. I highly recommend that you come up with some sort of title, something that's catchy, something that's easy to do. If you're used to vlogging, this will be very, very simple. Podcasts are just an easy way to get your message out, because I listen to podcasts on my way to work, especially if it's a story. I'm really big into storytelling. So what I want you to also do is look at a podcast and pick one that you actually like and listen to it. You can go on to Apple Podcasts and search any topic, and you're probably going to find a podcast on it. Any questions for me?
No, sir.
All right. So the other thing that I want to remind you about is make sure that you turn in your work on time. It's really, really super important. It makes things go smoothly. I know all of us are going stir crazy. Let me just say that I miss you guys a lot. I didn't realize how much I miss you until I start looking at your faces here, and I like seeing your face, and it's one of the things why I like having the video chat system. It works for me. It may not work for you guys, but for me, I like seeing everybody's face. And Jack, why do you have those weird glasses on?
Sorry, I just got back from skiing.
I got you. I hope you practice social distancing.
Well,
All right. Any other questions so far?
no, sir.
All right. If you do have questions, please don't hesitate. Just hit that email on AHS video. Duncan, what's your question?
I'm chatting with someone in this call right now. We're thinking of doing it with a group of friends that we have. How would we turn it in?
Basically, you're going to do a group podcast, so you have to have a way of recording everybody's voice.
Mm-hmm.
So for you, there are several ways you can do it. You can have them email you their MP3s, because they're going to actually record it as an MP3,
Mhm.
and then you put them all together. It's a
Yeah.
little bit more difficult, a little bit more challenging.
But I'm talking about the turn-in. Would we have it set up like, you know how our videos, like the channel is supposed to be our own channel?
Right.
For the channel that it's going to be hosted on, should it just be like the group name for the podcast?
Well, each of you have got to turn it in. So yeah, you can create like your channel is Duncan and Billy Bob's is Billy Bob, and you're both going to be turning in the same group podcast, but his will go directly to his channel. Yours will go directly to your channel. So you're both going to be producing the same thing. So let's say you've got 5 people in your group, which is a lot. You would take everybody's audio, record everybody's audio, and probably the best way to do that is do a Zoom session, and that way you can see everybody and interact. Then take the audio out of it and upload your audio to anchor.fm.
And Mr. Misner, if I could interject for a second.
Yeah.
I recorded my last last podcast episode on Zoom, and in the preferences in the settings of Zoom, you can opt to have each person's audio as a separate track. It'll save it as a separate track. And so then you could take those into GarageBand or Audacity and layer them all up, and then you have better control over each of the person's voice out and everything. That's how I put them right into Logic, and had really good results. I mean, it wasn't as good as people emailing me their MP3s from like a standalone recorder, but it was super easy. So just enable the checkbox that says create a separate audio track for each person. So then you hit record, you're recording the video, but it also records audio in separate tracks. Really convenient, really nice.
Okay.
That is awesome.
It's pretty awesome.
So for everyone that might not have heard that, Dr. Laux did a Zoom session, and in the preferences in Zoom, you can have each audio as a separate piece. It gives you a little bit more control over everything, and ultimately that's what you want in editing. I'm trying to make this as simple as possible. And you'll see that when you get into anchor.fm and you want to record your podcast, it will give you choices to do music. So usually what you want to do is you want to have an intro piece of music, and then, or usually you want to start with, "Hi, my name is Tracy Misner, and today we're going to be talking about teaching video online." And then you give a pause, and the music will raise, and then you record your rest of your podcast, and it will lower the audio.
Mr. Misner?
Yes.
How long does it have to be?
As long as you want it to be.
So like normally podcasts are like an hour or 45 minutes.
I don't think anybody's going to be listening to an hour's worth of podcasts. So think about your audience. If your audience are typical teens, 10 minutes, 5 minutes. And if you want to do this, you can do this almost every single day and make short little pieces. And that's what will make your podcast interesting. Katie, you've got a head start because you're vlogging. You could almost do a podcast from your vlog, but I challenge you to do something different. For you, Katie, and anybody else that's very active on social media, you've got a lot of businesses that would love to hear your perspective of social media. That is a business in and of itself. There are so many businesses, small businesses right now that are hungry to reach out to an audience, and they don't know how to do it. And they're doing it the best way they can. But right now, the internet is our saving grace. And the more personal you make your podcast and the more personal you make your social media, the better your audience is going to like it. We, as human beings, we all want one thing, and that is the human connection. And that's what makes this session so advantageous is we want to make sure that we have that human connection. So I'm going to open the room to any kind of questions that you guys may have. If you wanting to see that podcast again, there is a link in the calendar. Everything that I will do for you, I will post in the calendar. What I'm not doing is posting the link to this session publicly, just because I want to avoid any kind of Zoom crashers. So we don't want that to happen. So you're going to get an email with a link the morning of our Zoom sessions. Next week, we have spring break. Woo! I'm going to the beach. Well, I'm not going to the beach.
You're already at the virtual beach. You don't have to go anywhere.
I'm at the virtual beach. And that's about it, folks. My morning show crew, I got to tell you, I'm so freaking proud of you guys. I mean, there are hundreds of video teachers that have reached out to me because of what you guys are doing. And I'm wickedly, wickedly proud of you guys. You guys are making this look easy, and I know it's not. This is for everybody. I have a Zoom session at 1 o'clock. We are going to move forward with the Fulton Film Festival. You will get a prompt the Monday we get back from spring break. I will post that. But I will tell you, the organizers are talking about making this. You're going to create a movie, but you can't have people close to you. So you're going to have to do some creative editing. You'll be able to have teams of 10, and there'll be level ones and everybody else. And I believe, Audrey, didn't you win last year? Audrey Salter, did you win the Fulton Film Festival?
I don't know.
I thought I saw remember seeing your video as like one of the winners. At any rate, it'll be fun for us to try to experiment. Any other questions before I let you guys go?
No, sir.
Anyone need to see Anchor.fm or anything like that to see how it works?
I'm
yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
I have it pulled up.
Yeah, I can't let you share your screen. I have that blocked.
Oh, okay. What if I asked? Oh, it has been disabled. Okay.
Yeah. That was one of the Zoom preferences to prevent Zoom crashers from posting anything obnoxious. So I
did put a screenshot of the preferences. Someone had asked the box you check to create separate audio files for each Zoom participant. So I put a screenshot in the chat, so you can just open that up and check it out. But it's right in.
Can you also send me that? And I'll put that in the calendar as a
Eric,
link.
I'm going to message it to you right now.
Excellent.
Hey,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Do we have to do the attendance form?
Yes, please do the attendance form. Go to ahsvideo.com. That needs to be done on Wednesday by 3:30. And that gives me an idea of who is actually participating. Please do send in your work. If you were missing work from prior to us going on this Corona vacation, please make sure that you're turning in work, because if you're one of those people who were in the failing zone, you'll notice that there aren't a whole lot of grades going out, and you're going to really need to get everything completely done to get it as high as you can get it.
All of my students, FYI, need to have everything turned in, with the exception of the podcast, by tomorrow or Friday, because that's when we're supposed to have interim grades ready to go. So if you're missing it, please catch up. And then my attendance form is in Google Classroom for Laux's class, so it's going to be different than the one on the calendar. Don't use the one on the calendar.
Yes. All right. I believe that's got it. If you know anybody that's missed this session, the session is being recorded. It will be posted to YouTube later tonight. I have the exact same session at 2:00. If you want to get a handle on, maybe you tried this and it didn't work, join us. Please remind all your friends to check in. Please remind all your friends in our program to fill out the attendance form. And I thank you guys so much for joining us. It really means a lot to me that I get to do this. And I'm very, very thankful for it. I'm thankful for this platform. And I miss you guys a lot. Please feel free to reach out to me for anything, any questions that you have. If you go to ahsvideo.com and click on email Misner, it goes right to me, and that way I know that you've got a question and I can answer that for you. So I am going to end this session, and the session will end for everybody. You cannot copy any of the chats. The chat will be erased after this. If you've got any specific questions, feel free to reach out to me. I will see you at 2:00. Take care. Peace.